only recently has it come to my attention that I'll go through a day, right? I'll have a lot of things that happen throughout the day, even if it's a quiet day or whatever. Little things that maybe I'm thinking about detail-wise, or something that just happens that I'm like, I should talk about that later. Then when it comes around time, if I don't make notes, if I don't try and make an effort to remember these things, they just fly by in my head. I wonder if that just is how we're designed to be. I wonder how many good ideas often fly by the wayside. I know when I was a kid, I used to think of different things, and I maybe didn't have a piece of paper to write down, or certainly didn't have a smartphone. And now I make voice recordings really quickly, or I'll type out a note, or I'll post something. And that seems to help. But I know that there's an enormous amount of ideas, good and bad, or whatever, just ideas that never had a chance to figure out if they were good or bad, that I'll post about, and I don't ever get around to figuring them out. I was, as usual, I usually end up having a bunch of introspective moments after I've either gone through therapy or I've, worked on some stuff or things along that line. And I honestly earlier had two things, and I didn't write them down. I was like, surely I'm going to remember these things. But I had made a post, it was yesterday during the day, on TikTok, where I was talking about working freelance. And it was kind of interesting because I had posted it a couple of other places as well too. And the reactions, the comments, and just the interactions were interesting. On TikTok, I got a few. I got one guy that he did like 7 comments right in a row explaining, sort of super explaining what I needed to do. And I'm like, no, I get that, because the whole concept, if you guys hadn't seen it and don't know what I'm talking about, I had mentioned how there was a client that that they were taking their time paying me. And the problem wasn't anything, I'll just basically give you the detail again if you missed it. I did some work, and it was a rush job, and I hate when a rush job will come in. I don't mind doing them, but I know that it pushes other work that I've been trying to work on back, and so I usually would charge more for that, or go, okay, it's a rush, I'm going to do it, and it's not great, and it's not fun, it's knocked some other stuff out of the way. And those are things I hold in myself, and I'm like, but I'm certainly going to charge more for it. And my thing is this. Beyond what my problem is here, I'll explain why I'm talking about this sort of thing. If you are dealing with being a freelancer and somebody has a rush job, it's up to you if you want to take the chance and go ahead and do that job, or you can say, hey, I can't make that work, or I've got to fit it in this way, and they've either got to say yes or no. In this circumstance, it was a business card setup and layout. It was fairly simple, but they were having a lot of problems, and I guess the initial job had been handled by somebody overseas they couldn't get a hold of. And the logo was real fuzzy. They had gotten a low-res JPEG. And they were waiting and waiting and waiting on it because they kept trying to upload it. Now, one of the problems is when you upload to a business card site, they don't just show you the preview like this. Sometimes they'll show you like full screen, and then things look really fuzzy. The JPEG was decent enough that they could have gotten a digital print off of it, and it would have been fine. But blown up, it looked terrible. And so it wasn't a very difficult logo. I went ahead and rebuilt it for them because there was no other option, and I added that in the billing. I felt like I didn't have to say anything about that because they were like, we've got to get this done, and they're waiting on somebody that wasn't responding back. So I went in and said, okay, this is going to take me about 30 minutes to do. It's not that big of a deal. And I let them know, hey, I built this, and I'm going to bill for this sort of thing. Everything was fine. They were super happy. Thing went through. And they evidently went ahead and got the cards printed and everything else like that. But the problem was that however they paid for them on that way, they evidently didn't use a business check or whatever, because that was the answer I was given when I sent in my invoice, and enough time had gone by, about a week, and I hadn't heard anything, right? Those are the things that always make me nervous. Like, most of my clients are usually pretty good about, like, oh, hey, no, I got that invoice, or hey, don't worry, payment will be remitted this Friday or whatever. I don't have a problem. And there's plenty of other people that I'll do one-off work for that I trust them inherently. Didn't really know this person that well. And I understand that one of the things that I'll often get back is, hey, well, you should have had a contract. You should have done this. I get all that, all right? I'm not trying to be... not trying to be dismissive of that. The truth is, yes, for most clients, you should have something like that. You can do all the legal backing you want, and there's always a lot of people that will throw around the idea of going to small claims court and doing this sort of thing. The problem is, yes, as a professional, I want to follow through. I want to keep people honest. I want to be able to do everything I can to keep stuff together and earn my money. And I feel like, as a professional, if I'm being held up to a certain standard, others should follow suit. That's in a perfect world. I know that is not what transpires all the time, so it's what I'm dealing with now. My problem was, in this circumstance, like, well, you had enough money to be able to pay, and a way to pay the business card service. But when it came to me, you didn't have business checks, because that was the email I got was, well, there's no business checks right now. There's nothing like that. I was like, okay, well, that's fine. But it was the finality of the email where they specifically said, I'll email you when I'm sending it out. It's almost like, don't email me again. I don't want to hear about it. That, it's that kind of weird vibe. And I've been part of corporate America long enough to know that sort of speak, right? I may not look very corporate, but Lord, have I learned how to write in it, and have I heard enough of it drilled into my head that, like, I often think some of my motor skills are missing just because it's filled with corporate bullshit. And all I could think to myself was, like, it wasn't that big of a job, but it was a rush job. And although you might be fine with that, my financial state doesn't care about your financial state. And if it was flipped, it would be the exact same thing. They don't really care about my schedule. If it's a rush job, they'd like to get it done as quickly as possible. And I accommodated that, and I threw stuff out of the way, and that's not a big deal. That was not their concern, and it was something I wanted to do. The lesson learned is, okay, I can redo my invoice to them. I can think about maybe writing out a contract for somebody who I might really only do work for like 2 or 3 times a year on very small jobs. And there's always this weird thing that happens. Sometimes clients walk away from that stuff. Oh, why is there a contract? I thought we were good. Well, yeah, no, that doesn't always work that way. And I'm sort of learning that lesson. But I've often found that a lot of times, it's easier to put that out there and say, well, this is what you should have done, and this sort of, well, this is what I do. But we all have our moments where we fail and fall. And this is one where I'm like, I'm going to weather this out, because a lot of it too is the extreme burn. Hold on 1 second. Okay, sorry about that interruption. So I don't know if you guys, any of you that own cats, I do everything I can. This is just a little side note about owning a cat. I have a cat that it doesn't matter what happens. If he throws up somewhere or something happens, somebody spills something somewhere in the house, anything like that happens, right? Like maybe a dog dumps some dog food onto like a mat or something like that. He will ball it up into the smallest thing. I am so terrified of that, because for a long time when he had a UTI, he would do that sort of thing, and he's going right back for it. No, don't you. It's the doormat into the studio. And I don't even know why it drives me. It's just like, I don't have the time to mess with washing that one rug right now. But he's such an asshole. And the reason it bugs me is I used to have a mat in here that he would ball up. And when I came in, I wasn't paying attention. If I wasn't watching it, I damn near tripped and fell, stepping over it, or because thinking it was a cat asleep there or something. It's crazy. Just cat parent moments. Anyway, getting back to that. Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt the video and go off on my life tangent there. I know that there's a lot of challenges that come with doing stuff where you're trying to do contractual work, and you're trying to be fair, you're trying to be human, you're trying to be a person about it, right? And I know that the bigger the client, the more resolute any sort of agreement, contract, anything like that has to be when you're dealing with them, because there can always be a mess that comes from that, right? Either they won't respect what you've done, they don't care, or whatever may happen. And there's a lot of stuff that gives me anxiety when I think about that sort of thing. It was interesting because that was the one video I posted on TikTok that I didn't think was going to really get any views. I think it's just over 400 now. Not a lot of interactions, but certainly a lot of views on there. And then a few of the other places where I posted it, there have been people certainly willing to weigh in on it and tell me that sort of thing. And I get it. And maybe I came off a bit naive, or I just came off a bit nonplussed about it. It certainly bugged me, but I was like, lesson learned, not a big deal, and that sort of thing. And then there were people like, no, you need to go after that money. I'll be completely honest. It was like, oh, maybe I think the invoice was for like $175. It's like a couple hours of work, you know? And it's not that I'm throwing that away. I freaking need it. But at the same time, is it worth taking a stand and being rude or, you know, reinforcing something so harshly when it's like, you know what? I'm more of the zone where I'm like, all right, cool. You treated me that way. All right. If you have another, if I do decide to keep on working with that client and they have another rush job, I'm going to ask for half up or the whole thing ahead of time. Hey, if it's a rush, pay me now. You know I'm good for it. The other one got done and you took 2-3 weeks to pay me. So maybe that's an absolute. Maybe another aspect is also updating my invoice to go, hey, you got 10 days to pay me, or there's a 5% penalty fee or something. It always seems, I tend to be very laid back in a lot of things, so I always worry that it comes off a little draconian, it becomes a little heavy-handed, and that it's really the wrong tether that I want to throw out there for my own career. I just don't really like that. But the reality of the world is there's plenty of people that will take you for a ride too. So, you know, and that's a problem, and I can understand that. And it works both ways. Certainly, there are people that have paid, and then, you know, people that take a long time to get stuff done or whatever. But, and even when I run across that sort of zone for myself, right? Like recently, and I've been very open about this, I have put myself into a quagmire where I'm really running behind on a lot of stuff that I owed to a lot of people. Thankfully, I'm finally starting to see the end of the tunnel on that, and I'm getting things worked out. And, you know, there was a lot of things that went wrong, but I try to stay very open about what I'm going through, and I will reach out to people if something's not working out or, you know, whatever, and go, hey, you know, this isn't working. And I was that way with another previous long-term client that I had. Whenever I had said, you know, I'm not going to do design work, I just needed to walk away from that particular environment because it just wasn't working for me. And if I had stayed there, if I had just muscled through it, I would still be having those problems. I know I would. And sometimes it's hard to walk away from those sort of circumstances. But nonetheless, there's that. I'm certain it'll clear up. I'm going to give them until this next Monday. And if I'm not seeing anything or hearing anything by Monday evening, then I'm going to go a little harder back and go like, hey, look, you know, what is a timeline, right? Because it's still money. It's still something I need. And I think I probably wouldn't be so messed up about it if it hadn't been a quote unquote rush job. Those are always the ones that kind of drive me batty. And honestly, this is something else too that can go both ways. Communication is a big thing. It's a really, really big thing. And it is a very difficult thing. A lot of my colleagues that I've spoken to that have done freelance often go, you know, I don't know how to set those boundaries on that. And I went through that problem too. The moment that you are like, well, I'm available Tuesday through Friday, right? So you don't want to work Mondays and weekends don't really work for you. And as a freelancer, you can opt to do that. It may limit you a little bit, but there was a lot of times where, especially with two different clients I've had, their time, you know, it was not uncommon. Like, well, you know, I'm salary, so I work like 67 hours a week or whatever the hell. Well, I sure as hell don't. I value my personal time. I value my lifetime. So there's things I don't want to do. And I don't like getting a text message at Saturday in the morning going, hey, this coming Monday. No, just let me know Monday morning. You know, this may be making your schedule easier, but I'm not going to check this. And it probably wouldn't bug me if in some circumstances it wasn't something where it was a constant like, hey, just want to make sure you got that, you know, getting an email to make sure I got the text, or getting a text to make sure I got the email, or a follow-up phone call to do that sort of thing. I have lived that world and that environment, and that is a weird place to be, especially if you're a freelancer, because, you know, I get it if I don't respond or if I don't do things, but there's also got to be a point where it's like, well, no corporation, no company is worth me throwing everything I got at it all the time. And I know that, like, you know, some people, I've had people criticize some of my videos before going, dude, if you're trying to get a job or trying to get other contracts, if anyone sees this, what are they going to think? I'm like, they're going to think what they're going to think. I'm not going to lie to them. And I've been fairly forward with a lot of people. Like, no, I get it. Like, I've had some clients come forward before and go, well, you know, I can't promise you a lot of work or anything right now. I'm like, that's fine. That's kind of how that's the flow. That's my vibe. I really like that. I like getting work, but I like varied work. And I don't always like feeling like I'm hammered down on something and I have to juggle a bunch of stuff, because I'm not very good at that. And I'll be very frank about that. I'm like, you give me one project, I'll throw everything I got into it. I probably will work Saturdays and Sundays to get something done. But don't hand me 5 or 6 things because I'm not going to do them. I'm not very good at that. There's a part of me that's like, shut the fuck up. And then there's another part of me that's like, no, I've worked long enough that I've got to be honest about what I want out of life. And honestly, it's not worth it. I've seen people work for years for companies, freelance and otherwise, especially full-time. And then at the end of it, not until they go to work for another company, do they realize, hey, people get raises, people get real upgrades in their livelihood, in their work. They get responsibility and they get extra pay for that. This is a thing. And then there are some people that they're just like, well, at least they got a job. It's just such a weird world to be in right now. And I was even talking to somebody the other day about that. Like, where are we heading, financially and professionally as far as we're concerned? I mean, because when you look at where we're heading, I have a lot of questions. I really genuinely do. Like, how sustainable is what I do going to be over the next few years? I think that's one of the reasons why I'm like a little bit laid back about it, because I'm learning a lot of other stuff at the same time too. I continually try and further my education all the time. Having a BFA in commercial art is fine, but I've had to learn all along. I'm like right now I'm taking, different courses all online for learning different software and stuff. I've been learning different languages. I've been trying to up my knowledge and things, reading more, spending more time on stuff, just learning and experiencing. Because who knows? Who knows what it's going to look like in 10 years for anybody in the creative field or in any field, really. It's constantly changing all the time. And not just because of the advent of things like AI or the advancement of robotics or the reworking of how workflows, physical and planning-wise, will go for companies and places in general. There's things we don't even know yet that will supplement or supplant us. And then we have to learn how to work around those sort of paradigms and understand what the perimeter will encase, but what it will also exclude. And that's some crazy stuff, right? I mean, I belong to a group that puts out a newsletter about futurism. And I love reading stuff on there. Not all of it is in my wheelhouse, but there's a lot of stuff that talks about, where we're heading overall as a worldwide society, what it's like to bring into play the idea of like looking at where you are now and envisioning yourself in 20 years. In the 1950s, you probably could have done that and envisioned retiring in 20 years if you were a certain age, or making partner or becoming a branch manager or something like that. Today, that isn't the norm. And it's one could easily argue, because that is kind of the weird thing, depending on your social strata and even your financial income, the term quiet quitting and all that other rage, which I think is a terrible misnomer, is a weird thing. They think, oh no, that's just people being lazy, not wanting to work. Well, no, it's really just giving the bare amount of time that is expected of you for a company and nothing more, because you don't owe them your life. You don't owe them any of that. But depending on the perspective of where you are, you don't want to have to deal with that humanity aspect with your employees or anyone else in the industry around you. It'll interrupt your income flow. It'll interrupt your livelihood and what you've gotten used to. And it's so strange to me when I see this sort of thing come through, because it would probably benefit everyone from the lowest rung worker to a CEO to be able to understand what it means to have a much more beneficial application of what we can enjoy in life and move forward. But I also think that so much of that is based on the idea that they don't want to lose the status quo. They don't want to end up in a circumstance where, wait a minute, I built Amazon with my parents' money out of a garage at my parents' house. That sort of a thing. And I don't want anyone else to have that opportunity to supplant me someday, because, hey, let's be honest, Amazon has really done a number on Walmart. And for the longest time, Walmart was the most powerful thing in the world. Montgomery Ward, Sears were in similar places, and they're really not around anymore. It's just the changing of the guard. But I feel like nowadays it's gotten harder and harder to do that sort of thing. I can give you a really good example. This was a discussion. I was watching a buddy of mine stream the other day, and he was talking about how, because during COVID, there were a lot of people that jumped onto the bandwagon of, hey, let me make content. Let me see if there's something compelling I can talk about, or let me just do whatever dumbass shit I'm going to do on video and see if I get any followers. Okay, well, that can work to a certain degree. But there is something that happened. During that time, there were a lot of people that were losing their jobs, that were getting hours cut down. I was no stranger to that. I certainly fucking went through that. But there's a lot of people that started flocking to Twitch and YouTube and all these other places and TikTok, trying to eke out an existence. And I swear, that's almost the standard now, right? I will follow somebody, and it seems like 60% of the time, you will find people that they are the brand. And I find that kind of bizarre. I know that, and man, there's a lot of times that I'm just like, ooh, let me go get some shoe leather and eat that right now. Because I feel kind of stupid saying that, considering this is a journal about my life. And does that make me the brand? Am I technically the Artisan Rogue, or is the Artisan Rogue an ideology that encompasses a brand about creativity and talking about things? I just got done editing some video game playthrough footage, and that is through the Artisan Rogue brand. It's included here on the channel as well in the playthroughs. But that's me talking about art and stuff, which is part of the Artisan Rogue brand. But what I don't do is, and this isn't making fun of anyone, but it's just a good example. I may kind of give my opinion on things and talk through things, but I genuinely don't try and post anything that is too emblematically problematic. I don't do hot takes. I don't do clickbait titles in my videos, even though that seems to be the norm now. But my point was that during COVID, when it really jumped up, there were people that were like, I want to get out and I want to do this thing, and I want to be, famous. I want to be an influencer. I want to be all this sort of shit. And now you're starting to see platforms like Twitch double, kind of back up on that and go, there's no real way you're ever going to make a living here on Twitch. Anytime that there's ever an announcement about creator funds or getting paid for making content, I think that it's always like this mirage of a carrot that is dangled before, the donkey pulling the cart. And it gets further and further out until you realize, holy shit, this wasn't even a carrot. This was a wooden stick, a little stick sculpture that they painted orange and they hung out there, and we were never going to get to it. And it's not even a real carrot. And I feel like when you have these multi-billion-dollar, and eventually we probably will be able to say multi-trillion-dollar businesses, that they will do everything they can to ride on the popularity of people, and they will throw us a certain amount of money. The challenge there is we're fighting for scraps. And I don't care what your political affiliation is, what your culture is, what anything is. This is a worldwide thing. There are entire aspects. I saw something recently where Coachella has become more of an investment point for influencers to go pose, do all these other, and they play right into it. Coachella has become something where you go and you just make really cool Instagram stories or reels or shorts or YouTube videos, or you stream. And it's more about talking about the event and just looking as perfect and manicured. You work on that guttural fry in your throat to the best of your ability. I made a criticism because first of all, I want to preface this by saying I love radio from all eras. But there was something really cool about the late 60s to about the early 80s. And Billy West, who did voices on Futurama, including Brannigan. Jesus Christ. When you hear him talk, he talks with a certain cadence to his voice. There's a way that works when you're talking on the radio. And you might say, you're listening to 98.9 The Rock here in Kansas City. There's a way that you carry it through where you're swinging with every pitch and just falling into every crevice and just pouring it on like molasses, okay? People do that now in a lot of social media. And even the voice I'm using right now is a little more radio, is a little more than what I would normally talk like unless I'm doing public speaking or voiceover. And I find myself often falling into a conversational kind of talk like this. And that's just boring as shit. And I'm like, oh, fuck, I should redo that video. But I found that you can almost always pick out the people that are doing influencer type stuff or clickbaity videos or anything else like that, because there's two big things about it. One, it's a lot of recycled bullshit that 1,000 other people have done on YouTube, and there's nothing really pertinent or personal about what they're putting out there. And that is something that I try and hold to all the time, is like, I may be repetitious on some things, but I try and bring my personal thoughts into these videos and talk about specific things that are affecting me and what I'm going through, because I hope that when people watch them, they'll be able to glean something from it and go, oh, okay, well, this is what he's going through and I'm not alone in this. And I have a lot bigger plans down the road for expanding into this sort of thing. But the reason I was bringing this up is that there are entire motivations behind presenting a reality that just doesn't exist. I was kind of shocked by one of the playthroughs, and it'll be on here on YouTube here this week sometime. There was a playthrough that was showcasing, like, that I did. It was for, of all things, a mower simulation. Now, I don't play simulations very often. I just don't. But I don't know if it was the inner Hispanic in me or whatever. I was like, oh my God, a mower simulation. Holy shit, let me get in on that. And it was on sale, to be fair. So I did not pay a lot for it. And I couldn't get it to work the first time I loaded it. And I was disappointed. I have a riding lawnmower. I have a good sized lawn I can tootle around on. I still had the audacity. I'm like, oh, I'm just going to play this game. And I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with me? Turns out it's actually not that bad. It's actually kind of fun. But what got me was when I was playing through it, I'm like, it's funny that this simulation for mowing this, I mean, like, you could choose the mower, the deck height, how you cut the grass, what the expectations are. You get contracts. It's pretty bizarre. I've seen that like in NFL games and stuff, and I don't play a lot of sports ball games. But I was blown away by how much detail there was in it, right? And I got to thinking, I'm like, and Meta looks like shit. This billion-dollar company, Facebook, Meta, whatever, their world looks like shit. And the few people they cram in there, like, if you ever get a chance, look up Meta gameplay, whatever, here on YouTube. Watch any of those videos. The influencers they have are some of the worst actors. There's no script. They don't know what the fuck they're talking about. I guess at some point in time, Godzilla may have shown up or something. It was a weird video that I watched. I was like, this is terrible. They look like weird me characters that don't even have feet. It's very odd. And then I see something like this where it's in a controlled environment and it is a game, but you're playing a character literally mowing your grass. And I thought, Meta should be it should be something more akin to that. Now, the reason I'm bringing all of that up is that I very much see where we're heading toward a world. This is going to sound really dystopian, but just bear with me. I can honestly see a world where we're hopefully still going to have cats to keep petting me during this. She's going to hit me with her paw again. I know she is. Where you could live online and have this. There are some games that already afford you this sort of thing where you can have online collections of things. You can belong to a guild. I've played games like that. But at some point in time, I think it's really going to start heading into that Ready Player One sort of aspect. I think that's not a bad thing, so long as there's a solicitation that comes with the marketing that says, hey, don't make this your whole world. But of course, that's never going to happen. More time means more money, more of your life. You just become another cog in the wheel, or in the gears. Another gear in the cogs in the machine. Gear in the machine. Gears of War, whatever. And so when that happens, I can understand where, that's how capitalism works, and that's the greed of corporations. So we don't really want to fall into that. But I can understand, too, where something like that can be highly addictive, especially if your life isn't measuring up to this weird sort of sense of prosperity that is faux. It is extremely fake and is presented by so many people, even to a large degree, right? You guys are seeing a small modicum of what my studio looks like. I have talked about how that other half of my studio is a complete shit show. It's not totally, but there's a lot of it that's fucked up. But I've been very open about, like, the sewer breaking, the fridge breaking, other shit. Like, things go wrong in this house. This is my happy zone. This is just a part of my collection back here. I have so much other shit. And that's not to brag. That's just saying, like, this is stuff that I genuinely got as a child and I've collected and I really love. And so I'm trying to, really design the studio right and finish it the right way. And I think that there's a lot of times that I've been asked this before, like, well, how did you afford this? I've been buying things for years, and I'd always been hoping and eventually hand building this fucking studio. And when I say hand building it, it's partly from a source of pride and partially from a source of there aren't that many right angles in this room. So, much to my chagrin. But the point is that I don't understand like how it's helpful for any of us to see things that are not real, right? And I understand the allure of it because you hope, well, I want to become an influencer. I want to become a YouTube personality. I want to be able to make videos about my life that's interesting or something. Well, you can. Nothing's stopping you from doing that. But I think there's a real benefit to being honest about it. And this is a weird sort of thing. Now I'm thinking about it. I'm not even sure how I got down on this road of thought. But that is something that I've had to struggle with. There's a lot of times that because I see all these other really flamboyant things, you know, with people like, because there was a guy the other day, he posted, he was like, I just spent $500,000 on this baby tiger. And number one, I'm like, fuck you. Number two, why? If I had $500,000, the shelter wouldn't be having a problem right now with money. There'd be a lot more people I'd be helping out. But no, please go on about how you can have this $500,000 cat. Now, that's the story we're given. We don't know if that's true or not. I hope the cat will be okay, but I do wonder what happened to its siblings and to the mother. It's terrifying. So there's a lot there to kind of process and work through when it comes to life in general and how it can make us feel. And I've talked to a few therapists, you know, about that sort of thing, this conundrum that's happening where you have a lot of younger people and even people my age and far older that, you know, they're overwhelmed by what they're seeing, and whether it's through the media or whether it's social media, we end up being inundated with this idea that we're not good enough. And maybe this is a good swing in the subject matter to talk about, because you don't need a lot in life to get through things. And the older I'm getting, the more I'm slowing down on what I'm buying, what I'm collecting, what I'm utilizing, and realizing that I have enough. I really do. There may be some things in life that I really like. In fact, shit, I picked this up the other day, but this was just because it was on sale. I found a D&D playmat for if I, you know, when I get back to gaming with people and stuff like that. I finally have my own playmat. It's like an oversized mouse pad, but it was like on sale for $8, and I was like, oh, I didn't have one. I'll get it. Did I need it? No. Just a little happy thing I liked. And I wondered for a long time what this channel was going to be about. It is about art. I certainly need to put more videos up as I get them done. It is about talking about art direction and inspiration in video games. It is about books. It is about a lot of things that are interests of mine. But I also realized too that maybe I'm going to try and go against the grain with what's going on here on YouTube. You're not going to see clickbait titles on here, which might mean that far fewer people are going to see these videos. And I'm okay with that. I am really genuinely okay with that. Ultimately, to stand and do something because you feel it's a better avenue or something just more aligned with what I believe, I'm okay with not really getting a wide berth or a wide reach. It's okay. There's lots of other ways to do it. And some people, they watch most of the video. Some people watch all of it. And a few don't watch but a few seconds of it. And if I'm not Michael Bay blowing something up, then they don't really give a shit. And that's okay. It really is. It's helped me, now that I'm older, to come to terms with what I want to do in life and what a lot of the problems are that I see significantly out there affecting people. And I got to thinking that maybe one of the problems why, as a creator, I've struggled to even deal with something like going all the way back to the first thing I was talking about. Look at me bringing the discussion full circle around. Dealing with clientele or stuff like that. Maybe it really is sharing those experiences on anyone's social media or whatever, but being forward enough to say, hey, I'm doing the best I can. I'm not doing it 100%, but here's my experiences. So here, learn from this. It's definitely fueling some of the publications that I'm working on to kind of bring some levity to people's thinking. And, you know, I know that over the years I've read other books from other professionals, and it's always surprised me. It's usually through a very rose-colored glass look, and that's fine. But I kind of want to know, like, did you have some days where you were depressed? Did you have some days where you were out of money and you really couldn't afford the art supplies to get more work done? Was there a point where you did a show that was so bad that you went and you sat in your car and you cried? Was it one where you felt like your parents weren't supportive? Was there one where you felt like you wanted to do better, and no matter what you did, you threw 110% into it and it still went wrong and you wondered why? Those are all things that have happened to me, point blank. And I think there's not enough open and honest discussion about that sort of thing. People are awkward about it. People are very weird about it. And I'm certainly learning. Shit, I don't know everything. Fuck, I'm still freaking out about somebody's not paying me on a job, not even a big job. And I don't know what the end result will be, but that's what's on my brain right now. So I'm going to have to think more about that, because I certainly want to keep doing more about that specific thing. I really do. I think that there's... Somebody told me something the other day. I'm going to end with this. You can go through life and you can see a lot of really bad things. I saw some horrific news this morning. Just when you think depravity has reached its peak, you'll see something that goes, oh shit, oh my God, that's terrible. And you can feel overwhelmed, right? So I'm going to leave you guys with this. You can feel overwhelmed. And sometimes, and rightfully so, people will often say, well, I want my content or whatever I'm making to be a bright spot. And you'll have plenty of people out there that are anger-induced, posting reactionary bullshit. But I think that there can be a place or a source where you can talk honestly about something, maybe get a little angry, maybe get a little upset, but have a good conversation about things. Genuinely explore these things. Understand where the source of your depression or your anxiety or your anger or your discomfort is coming from. Address it and see if others feel that way, what they've done. Where does that go? How do we work through this sort of thing? And I ask people that stuff all the time. If you have an idea or you have an input on any of this, please leave a comment below and let me know. I've seen it in corporate America. I've seen it in freelance. I've seen it all over the place. And I think more and more as I move forward in my life, I'm like, well, maybe I still want to be an artist, but I think there's also this point where, like I was saying, you see all these horrible things, right? And somebody recently told me, the really crazy part is because I experienced those things, whether it was directly, indirectly, through news, through seeing it, whatever, they weave themselves into the fabric of my life. When that happens, they are intrinsically part of me. Now, whether my brain forgets them at some point, or I talk about them, or explain them, or share them, or recall them, they're still there, right? You try and do enough digging through trauma, you'll realize, holy shit, I've been given a shitty memory. Thank you, therapy. From like third grade or some shit. But the good thing is that also means that for every good thing you do in life, if you foster an animal, if you make artwork that inspires somebody, if you write a poem, if you share a poem, if you speak out about something, if you stand up for somebody, if you call a friend and visit with a friend, if you make time for the better things in life, even the smallest things, even if it's something stupid for yourself, I'm going to take that back. It is not stupid. Even if it's something for yourself. You got a brand new Lego set, you collect stamps, you want to play with your cat. Luna was up here right now, whatever, right? Anything like that. You want to make a vlog, you want to do anything that isn't harming anyone else or anything else. Do it. Celebrate that victory, celebrate that moment, and realize that right there, you were able to provide a moment of peace, levity, fun, humor, quiet, whatever adjective or descriptive you want to adhere to it. And that made the world better. And you can do it again. You can do it multiple times a day. Even when your day is shitty. I've had some terrible days where I was like, holy fuck, this is terrible. And I'll do just something stupid, right? Like, I'll pull out like a handheld game, or I'll build a model, or I'll paint something, or sometimes I'll just watch some stand-up comedy on Netflix or something and just enjoy myself. And even bringing mirth into my own life that way, it's worth it. So hopefully this video helps out some people, and if you needed it. But if you're in doubt, please remember that every single person on this planet, egotistical or not, worries. We all freak out. I realized the other day, I don't think anyone knows anyone without trauma. There are plenty of people that mask the shit out of it, and plenty of people like, I don't know what it's like to be sad. Shut up. Yeah, you do. You just don't. You don't know it yet. It'll unlock someday. But I've really sincerely thought about that. I was like, I don't think there's anyone that doesn't have trauma. No child has ever grown up going, I grew up in a trauma-free environment. No, somebody around you was dealing with trauma, maybe indirectly, but it was there. And it's kind of alarming. And now I understand why so many therapists are like, no, therapists are going to be the next really big thing to go into and the real big need moving forward for at least the next 80 years. And I can believe that. I really can. So I'm not going to go into any more negative shit, but I will tell you where you can find me. If you type in the Artisan Rogue in Google or whatever search thing you use, Bing, Alta Vista, Ask Jeeves, whatever the hell you use, you will find me everywhere and anywhere. Seriously. I am on TikTok. I am here on YouTube. I am going to eventually be on Twitch. I know I'm always saying that, but like I've just been trying to get my shit together. I keep saying it until I'm going to hold to it, or until somebody comes along and is like, why aren't you on Twitch? And I say that, and one of my asshole friends is going to do something like that. Yeah, I'm going to shut up now. This video is super long. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll catch you in the next entry. Getting back to my self-promotion. So, ooh, he jumped up where he shouldn't have jumped. I am so coming for you right now, man. The next entry. I'm gonna get that diction right, because it sounds like I'm like, catch you in the next century. Number one, we'll catch them in the next century. Century. Catch you in the next entry. Yeah, that's what I want to say. The next entry. I'll catch you in the next vlog. It sounds douchey. This is a vlog, but it's very douchey. Very douchey to say that. I don't want to say that. I'm saying it now, though.